Folks, it's Scott once again coming to you with another movie review. It's of the 2019 film Serenity. The film's directed by Stephen Knight, and he also produced it along with two other producers, Greg Sharpio and Guy Healy. The film was also written by Stephen Knight, and the film stars Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Diane Lane, Jason Clarke, Djimon Hounsou, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and Jeremy Strong. And basically the film's a neo-noir thriller, which is kind of interesting because I don't get to see many of them. I like how there's always the plot thickens and there's always twists and turns here and there. And it's typical of those types of films, but it depends on how it's executed. Normally they can be interesting or they just can fall flat on their face. And I gotta say, overall, it does kind of fall flat on its face. I was not impressed with this movie. It's going to be a rant. It's not going to be like a over-the-top rant, but I would say this: it's definitely worse than Glass, believe it or not. Yeah, it's worse. It's got an interesting concept, but it's not executed well, and the main character is really not the main character, and I'll get to that. And it's just one of those things where it has an interesting concept, but you cannot relate to it, so I'll get to it. Basically, this guy, the Baker Dill character, Baker Dill, Matthew McConaughey's character, he's kind of like a down-out-of-luck fisherman. He's obsessed with catching this fish specifically big tuna named Justice. And he almost has it for the first time, but I think his assistant, Duke, played by Djimon Hounsou's character, he's unable to secure it, and he loses it, and he pretty much fires Duke based on that and the loss of the money and whatnot. And he's basically trying to make ends meet, trying to survive. He often, drinks at this bar. And then one day, apparently his ex-wife, Karen, played by Anne Hathaway, comes in and is having some struggles and, tasks him with an idea to kill her abusive husband, Frank, who's also sexist as well, and also takes it out on his son, Patrick, as well. And then during this time, he always has these odd connections and visions with his son, Patrick, that will later on be revealed. It does explain that. And he, while he's reluctant and almost, flat out refuses, he decides to get the proper motivation to do so. And I'll get to that in a sec. Apparently this businessman earlier that was always trying to catch up with the Baker Dill, like he always come close but always fall too short. And then finally he reaches him and he presents him with this kind of, he claims that he's working for the fishing company, the equipment that supplies him with the ability to track fish and whatnot. It turns out he's more than that. He's actually just a player or a role in this real-life simulation game. So it turns out Baker, this whole film for the most part, spoiler, he's in a video game, some kind of real-life reality game that apparently has been created by Patrick. And the reason you would find out is because apparently the actual real Baker Dill is dead in life. And he was killed in war, apparently. But he's created all these real-life simulations in that world, probably making them a bit different. Frank, and there is a Frank in real life that's actually abusing his real mother, and he makes him a probably even worse character in the game, I would suppose. And so when he realizes this, the real Baker Dill decides he's going to go through with this plan and eventually kill Frank. And we see I don't know how to talk about this movie because it's rather unexpected. Like they go through certain events, like Baker tries to set it all up, but apparently Duke is well aware of this plan and actually kind of delays it by actually having some guy beat up Frank, and that's what delays it. And so eventually, Anne Hathaway's character is able to convince him and get him all going and able to make the trip, even though his hand's all messed up. and can barely, walk right and whatnot. So eventually, they do this, and while this is going on concurrently, we also see that Patrick's, Baker Dill's son Patrick is, setting these up, creating these algorithms, setting everything up in motion. And he's basically using this video game as kind of a tool to kill his abusive stepfather, pretty much. And right when he's setting up to Baker and getting this to get Frank killed off, they're not gonna actually do it. They're just gonna get when Frank has holding the fishing rod and whatnot, that Frank will get pulled onto the ocean and they won't bother to rescue him. It's either going to be a huge fish or a shark or whatever. That's where they're actually using Baker Dill's boat to go out in the ocean and have Frank be pulled underwater and that'd be that. I mean, no one's actually going to be shot or stabbed and whatnot. So, and eventually that does happen. And while that happens, Patrick grabs a knife and ends up killing his abusive stepfather, pretty much. So, I'm gonna shorten this review. I mean, the trailer makes it look like it's gonna be a thriller of some kind. Where are they gonna really go through this or not? Which, like I said, it sets up things well, but just the whole oddness to it, the fact that he keeps flashing back, like you see a flashback of him swimming with his son naked, and I thought that was very odd and weird, so I have no idea what they were doing with that. Just to establish the connection and the visions that Baker Dill was having. And then, of course, the unexpected plot twist, which is actually revealed in the middle, and was kind of unexpected. But, I don't know, it just wasn't executed very well. And I guess I'll get to the pros and cons of this film. The cons definitely were overall the concept of this, the whole idea that Patrick is basically using this video game, this video game simulation as kind of a tool and motivation to kill his father. It kind of makes us hard to relate to this character. I mean, yeah, it's a very tragic situation, and it makes us kind of feel a little bit of sympathy, but something about it just doesn't make me sympathize with him too much. I think they should have delved more into it. I mean, we kind of see Frank come in, but we kind of see the after effect, like he's laying down, covering up, and whatever. But I just wish there would have been a little more. I wish they would have shown the real Frank. Maybe he might have been actually worse than the video game simulation. Maybe the video game simulation was only what he half represented of the real life Frank. So I wish it would have delved more into that. It doesn't really give. I think the film just doesn't really give us very good character motivations. Is the problem. That makes me really hard to sympathize. I mean, Matthew McConaughey. Well, I'm done. I'm not gonna get the pros yet, but it just takes away that he's really not the main character. It's actually, I guess you can say, Patrick's kind of really the main character in this film, and I don't have the utmost sympathy. It just kind of comes off weird, and I guess the dialogue of what Frank was given with, about slapping 13-year-old hookers or whatever it was that he said, I can't remember, but I guess since it's a 13-year-old, apparently that's how the character is. He yeah. But anyways, I feel like most of the actors, they have half decent performances, but they kind of feel like they're sleepwalking and whatnot. So maybe that's the problem. It just the whole overall concept was just not very well executed. And we did kind of get maybe it kind of doesn't make sense whenever we see Patrick in the ward in the end. I guess this film kind of takes the movie Identity, which I haven't seen in a while, but I have seen it, and I honestly believe that's a much better movie overall. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. But anyways, it kind of reminds me of Identity, but this time it's not really well executed. And we see how Patrick's in the ward, and somehow his son is reunited with Frank in the game. I don't know if that's something that Patrick had already planned out whenever he was still in the ward. Because we see, by the end when Frank is dead, and we see Anne Hathaway give him the money, and Anne Hathaway's character somehow disappears, and then we see the whole game kind of changing everything. We see the effects take hold, which isn't done badly. We see how the whole environment changes. Baker answers the phone, talks to his son, and somehow reunites with him. And but yeah, I guess it has somewhat of a kind of a bright ending for Patrick, at least in the video game world. But in the real world, he's probably going to be in the ward or psychiatric hospital for a good while. So it doesn't exactly have a good ending. But I'll get to the pros. Some of the performances by McConaughey and... Oh yeah, there's another con that I forgot to mention. I like Diane Lane, but there really wasn't much to her character. It's like she's here and there, and I guess she's more of Matthew McConaughey's kind of a casual sex interest right there, so that's pretty much it. But I don't really understand what the point was her character, because we see her here and there, and she disappears, so... Yeah, there was really no point in her character. She could easily be cut out of the movie, honestly, so... But yeah. But I'll get to the pros. The pros, I'll say this, the cinematography was really good. I'll say that. It looked really well done, well shot. The blues are very bright. And yeah, I like how the exotic I can't say it. Exotic settings were, you know, even if it was kind of a rundown kind of area. It's just very well shot, you know, the way the sand brightens up, and even during some of the rain shots, even though they can be darker, they're very well done. I'll say this, the director and the cinematographer set up their shots very well. And just like I said, the very beginning was okay. It set up something very well, and then this unexpected twist and turns, and the actors kind of having half-decent performances here and there, it really threw the film into the loop, and I didn't care for it, and the whole twist was just what threw it out. But yeah, I'll say the cinematography and the shots were set up well, and some, like I said, parts of their performances of McConaughey and Hathaway were okay. Like there's this one attempt at them, you know, having a sexual scene, but it does nothing much happens because Matthew McConaughey decides he doesn't want to get involved with her. He just wants to help his son. That's of course in the video game simulation world. So yeah. But at the end, the music I thought was decent. It had some heart to it. So basically the two themes, or maybe 2.5 themes, the performances were okay for where they were at, and the cinematography was very good, and the music was also very good. It deserved to be in a much better movie. But yeah. So yeah, I was not really impressed with this film, and I didn't really feel sympathy didn't feel too much sympathy for Patrick. I know that's hard for me to say. I mean, if they would have built up the character motivation a little better, I mean, other than just creating this video game for him to be using it as a tool and motivation to kill a stepfather, I mean, that's what, you know, eventually he'll turn into a serial killer, and I find that hard to empathize with. I just wish they would have shown more of the extent of the abuse in the real life situation, instead of just, you know, cutting back and forth concurrently and whatnot. So overall, it's a film that I wouldn't recommend, but if you like the cinematography, if you like those type of locations and the music, I suggest, you know, paying a cheap, very, very cheap price for it. That's what I'm going to say. Otherwise, I can't really recommend this movie. But if you like Matthew McConaughey, and, you know, give it a watch. But it's not a film that I'm not enthralled with, so yeah. I'm sorry for this kind of weird review, because it's kind of a weird film to review. I know that, you know, neo-noir film thrillers are not exactly... That's something I never really tackled before, but you would think it'd be a little more simplistic, where things would make sense here and there, which I understand, which it kind of does, but it's just the concept is just out of place and out of touch. And like I said, halfway decent performances, then sometimes it looks like they're just kind of going through the motions and just sleepwalking. And I have to admit, even at times, Anne Hathaway's performance is a little dull, so yeah. Anyways, I've gone too long, but can't recommend this film, so there you go. Alright, I might go on to another film that I reviewed recently, The Prodigy. It's slightly better, but yeah. Anyways, I'll see you in another video, folks. Bye-bye.